Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning somewhere out there in the world. I'm kind of liking that beat, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Welcome, guys. We haven't been here in a minute, the Face of a Hero show. And of course, I am always accompanied by my great co host, and that is
Agustin Maron.
the man, Agustin. Agustin, what's going on? How are you, Agustin?
I'm good. I'm busy, and I apologize. I'm in my car and family matters, but I'm here. I'm here,
That was
dedicated.
Hey, that was a good show, Family Matters. Do you remember that?
Oh
I think
yeah,
that was the name of the show. Well, guys, happy Thursday to you all. I look forward to the great guests that we have this evening for you. And of course, we're on every Thursday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time with your hostess with the mostest, EVE, and of course, my co host again,
that's right. Agustin Maron.
Agustin Marron. We got to roll those R's. Marron.
Maron.
Marron. I wonder how Myra, your wife, used to say it. Myra.
Maron.
Anyway, give my love to your family, will you, Agustin?
Absolutely.
So it is shortly after the hour, and we thank everybody that's joining us this evening. We have an amazing guest this evening that he has gone through his trials and tribulations, let me tell you. And many people have gone through trials and tribulations, but each story is individual. And so my spirit went to saying, hey, he is a hero. I've met him some time ago. We worked together in some projects, and I want to give a shout out to MJ, Michael Jennings. He's also an all-star. He's a Hall of Famer. Thanks for having to have connected me with Mr. Julius Mercer. So I'm going to not keep him waiting. Without further ado, we're going to introduce you to Mr. Julius Mercer. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Hey everyone, hello.
Hey, Julius.
Yes, so glad to be here.
Yes, well, thank you for being a hero for us.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. No one has ever said that, and I was telling myself, well, at least you didn't say that about yourself, Julius. So thank
But
you.
you know what?
I'm
You
taking
got to
it
give
back.
credit where credit is due, right? And
That's
so
right.
we're always searching for stories of heroes from the highways to the byways. And it doesn't have to be someone with a big, huge title to be a hero, because just any common, ordinary person is a hero out there. And these stories need to be shared, especially if they're out there making a difference. And there's so many different ways to make a difference, right? But what touched me is your story, Julius. And first of all, everybody, this is Mr. Julius Mercer. He is a founder of Contagious Visions anti-bully educational platform. He's a graduate to Kansas State University back in the 80s in the former world-class hurdler. You got some long legs. Well, I haven't seen those legs. So or you got a good jump to be able to do that, right?
Oh yeah.
You are also
Yeah.
an all-American author. Well, you are a track and field all-American Division One. Am I correct?
Correct.
And you are an author to a new fire. Ooh, that's interesting. We're going to hear about what that's all about. But first of all, I want to know, who is Julius Mercer as a person, as a human being?
That's
Who is
right.
Julius Mercer?
Tell us.
As a human being,
As a
well,
person, who is Julius?
well, I like to think that I am just a good person, very respectful of others, very compassionate and full of empathy, especially for those that have been shunned by society, or those that have been told that they'll never change, they'll never amount to anything, and that it's too late for them to change and get back the way they was. And I'm that person that will go and become a mentor in their lives if I can, and offer them some hope and inspiration and help. You know how like for example, like the once upon a time I was like in a deep hole, and there was some special people that put a ladder in that hole, walk down and grab my hand, and then walk with me up. That's the type of person that I am to get out that hole.
Right, right. So are you a father? Do you have children, Julius? Now I'm going to get into your personal life.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, I have two beautiful daughters. Uh, Jessica Lynette Walker. She lives in Kansas City, Kansas. She's my eldest daughter. And I have a younger daughter named Samaria Phillips. She's an entrepreneur, a young entrepreneur.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
Well, shout out to them. And also, as I mentioned, MJ, I can call him MJ, Michael J. Jennings, my Hall of Famer. Shout out to him as well. He was the reason that I think who I met you through, if I'm
Yes,
not
good guy.
mistaken.
Really, really good dude. Yeah,
Yes,
Michael
he
Jennings,
is.
and there's a couple other friends too, mutual friends that know of you.
That's
And
right. Eric
yeah,
Dole.
yeah,
Eric
Eric
Dole.
Moll, Anthony
Eric Dole,
Merlin,
rather. Yep. Yep.
yes, and Robert Renteria. I'm just
Robert
friends with.
Renteria. Yes, I
Yeah,
talked to
with
him
you.
earlier. He's come
And
on
Craig
our show as well.
and Craig
Craig
Hodges. Mama,
Hodges, I got to bring him on. I told
and
Eric, I
then-
said, Eric, you got to get me Craig to come on. These are fellows that have paved the way for those that followed behind, and Julius is one of them. So tell us about your youth. What got you into track and doing the hurdles?
Yeah, well, funny thing happened on the way to the ballpark. So I attended Rich East High School in Park Forest, Illinois, which is a south suburb of Chicago. And actually, my freshman and sophomore year, my freshman year, actually I played baseball and then I played basketball. And my junior year, I have two brothers that had ran track, and then and they had both set records at that time. The records are broken now. And then my eldest brother, who is now deceased, he encouraged me to go out for track my junior year. I never ran track in my life, so I did. I showed up to practice, and I had this Hall of Fame track coach from Eastern Illinois University. His name was Johnny Meisner. At that time, I had no idea he was going to be a Hall of Fame coach, but it all makes sense with my career. So I met Johnny Meisner, and then he likes to say Julius showed up at the track, was a tall, lanky, skinny kid, and Johnny Meisner, he took a low hurdle and he pulled it out on the track, and he said, "Julius, you ever ran the hurdles before?" "No, sir." He said, "Jump over that," and I jumped over it like all off balance, and he said, "You're going to be a hurdler." That was the beginning. So my junior year, the coach spent a lot of time molding and shaping my technique of how to hurdle, putting emphasis on what's called the lead leg and the trail leg, and just good running technique. And so I fared okay my junior year, but my senior year, I was undefeated in the low hurdles and the high hurdles and qualified for the Illinois State meet.
Wow. Wow.
How did that make you feel when you first said, "Nah, I can't do that"?
Well, I don't know, that there was something about me that I pay attention to coaches. I'm coachable. I've always been a coachable person because I was always wanting to learn. And in fact, it was that coach who actually put a vision, goal, and dream inside of my head that I had no idea. So it made me have a lot of respect for coaches as mentors.
Okay, so that's what turned you on and to actually be more confident with your skills, your ability, right?
Yes,
What happened?
it's sort of like being around the right person that can give you the right information, and then can kind of pull your talent out of you or to increase your confidence. His main thing was to increase my confidence, and I bought into his philosophy, his way of teaching, because I kept every time when he would show me something and teach me something, then I could do it really quick. It didn't take me very long, so I was able to master the technique really quick, and then I would see positive results. And so every time I guess when I see something positive, then I continue to buy into his philosophy. I felt like, the coach's his best interest in me was there.
That's great.
Wow,
That
that's
is good.
awesome.
So what
Thank
happened? What happened to basketball and baseball? It went to the wayside.
you. Baseball went to the wayside. When I was a freshman, I was a pitcher. I rode the bench though, and I played one particular game. And I remember I had a couple of strikeouts, but my first two pitches went over the backstop, and everybody was laughing. So they used to call me Satchel Paige. But yeah, but I did play basketball. Um, I played freshman year. I played sophomore. My sophomore year, I got put up to varsity at the end of the season, and then I started in high school my junior year and my senior year. Craig Hodges, when he was a senior. When he was a senior, I I played quite a bit, and when he was a senior, I started, and when I was a junior, I played quite a bit, basketball.
Not
In
the
fact,
Craig
I was,
Hodges.
pardon me.
Not the Craig Hodges.
Yeah,
Yes,
D.
it
Craig
is.
Hodges.
See, Craig Hodges.
Yeah,
Okay.
two-time NBA champion with the Chicago Bulls.
Yes. Okay.
I haven't seen him in a while. It's been a moment. So Eric, I'll reach out to him, but he's like, talk to my son. He takes care of my calendar. I'm like, okay, now I'm trying to
Well,
get a hold of the son, right? So I'm gonna put Eric and his son to put to work to schedule him. He is also a hero. He's still moving and shaking. He's still doing his things as well. So today the spotlight is on you, Mr. Mercer.
Absolutely.
So once you got done with track, what happened next?
well, my senior year, like in high school, like, well, I'll speak what happened with us. At the end of the season, like track and basketball, they have like an awards party, give out awards, hot dogs,
Yes.
Cokes. And so my senior year in basketball, I received the award, best defensive player, on the team, co-defensive player on the team. Got an award also that I reached the most out of my potential. In basketball, I was coached by the infamous Steve Fisher, who went on to coach many, many years at San Diego State University. And then in track and field, when my track season was over my junior year, I got what was most valuable player, etc. And at that time, though, I had no vision, hopes, or dreams that I can even make it in college because my grade point average was 1.65 on a 4.0 scale.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so the coach who originally taught me how to run the hurdles my junior year, after my junior year, that coach had left.
Oh wow.
So now I'm under the guidance of another coach. And that particular coach, again, I won these awards, and he didn't even say anything about me going to college, whatever. And then that's how I left, the banquet. That's how I ended school. Nothing.
They
With
failed you.
nothing. Yes. So when that summer came after school, my senior year, I got a job at the Park Forest Golf Course, and picking up golf balls and things of that nature. And then one day while I was there working, a coach from an adjacent school in Chicago Heights, Illinois, this school is called Bloom High School. This coach had showed up. He was a track coach. And he saw me working and he says, "Hey, Mercer, what are you doing here?" I said, "Just working. You're going to go to school?" I said, "No one talked to me about school." He says, "Look, I got a connection with Butler County Community College, which is a 2-year college in Kansas, and it's for athletes that have poor grades. And I can get you a scholarship there because I already have a connection, and you can use your athletic ability to help you to graduate, and then you can go from there." And I said, "Wow." So he made a phone call. And then within several weeks, that coach from Butler County Community College drove all the way from Kansas, and he picked myself up along with a few other athletes from the area. And so now I'm in Kansas at a junior college. Yeah, so that's how I got out there.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, thank God that somebody saw you and recognized your talent to be able to pick you up off your feet there. Because, unfortunately, that new coach that you had, I mean, if that was the new coach, he failed you in my eyes, because he thought about your athletic skills, but he forgot about your academics. And, it's unfortunate that's what some of these coaches do. They want that star, they want that superstar, but they work with the teachers and say, "Hey, he's my superstar. Let him be. Let him be. Let him slide."
Yeah, and also that same coach was a math teacher, and I was in his class. And so, I think I passed the class with a D just for
Wow.
showing up, just for showing up. And I'm
Wow.
sure when I look back in hindsight, he equated my IQ with that class and my grades. And he was wrong, because years later, after I graduated from college, I go back and I asked him, why did you try to get me in college? And he said to me, I didn't think you could handle it academically. Then I remember I was furious, and I said, that's what's wrong with us now. That's why we have trouble making it.
That's right. That is right.
Wow. That is sad. That is so sad. So something happened to you. Something was going on with you, Julius. In reading, all of your recognitions and where you've been interviewed, and there's always something that happens to us to get us to go where we are now today, right?
Absolutely.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, so in 1983, my life's 1984 actually, my life seemingly was at the top. I graduated from Kansas State University. As I mentioned, I overcame academic deficiencies. See, at age 19, when I was in a 2-year college, I had tested out at 5th and 6th grade levels. And yeah, and thank God I had tutors and mentors that helped me to increase my vocabulary, and also they increased my memory. One of the teachers says that I don't have a reading or writing problem. This faculty member said that I have a memory problem. So through a period of conditioning, over and over and over repetition, they taught me how to remember, and then that's how I graduated from college.
Wow.
And also, as my confidence built up, then my senior year at Kansas State, I graduated from the junior college with a 2.1 GPA.
Wow.
And then I received a full scholarship from Kansas State University. And then upon my arrival at Kansas State, we call it K-State, the coach that originally gave me the scholarship, he was fired. So I was furious again. Where's the coach?
Wow.
So I meet this new coach, and then I sort of was demanding, I said, to transfer. And then he said, go ahead and, transfer. But I wasn't very happy. But it turns out that the new coach had coached a former Olympic team. And his name was Steve Miller. And Steve Miller, he devised a plan for me athletically, along with my professors in sociology. They devised a plan to help me to succeed academically and athletically. To succeed athletically, because we are taught that we are student athletes, students first, because many athletes we forget. We focus on athleticism. So they put it in my head that I was a student first. And what they did was, so now I'm at Kansas State, and the classes are at a higher level. I'm sure you guys already know. These classes are like 400, 500 level classes. So my junior year, I was struggling with those classes. And in fact, I flunked out of Kansas State my junior year. But my professor, who was, he was a distinguished professor in sociology named Hank Camp. He called me into his office and he said, Julius, we want to speak to you. I've been watching you at your track meets, and you're pretty good and you're a pretty good guy. He says, and he happened to be white. And I'm saying that for a reason when you hear why I said it. So he says to me, Julius, he says, there's two things. I would like for you to think about changing your major from physical education to something else, what you like, because a lot of, especially black athletes, are stereotyped going into physical education. And some will say that's the easy route. So he asked me, what are the things that I like doing? Similar to the question you asked me, like who I am. And then, matter of fact, I said, helping other people. So we chose sociology, being a social worker. And what he did was, he says he wants me to go to the library and pick out an African slave who overcame all the atrocities dealing with slavery. Mm. And I picked Frederick Douglass. And then I read Frederick Douglass' story. And when I read his story of how the slaves during that time, one of their biggest methods was to keep everyone dumb, do not teach them to read. So, but when I read how Frederick Douglass, I think he was taken away from his family around age 8 or so, and then around 12, his slave counterparts, the children of the family and the wife, they taught Fred how to read. And once he learned how to read, he eventually escaped, went up north, and he continued to get more education. He ultimately became an abolitionist and then got his PhD. And when I read that story, it did something to me miraculously. During that summer, I had to take 4 classes. And my professor, he told me that I cannot score below a B. So they again put tutors in my life. And I had to focus strictly on that, stop partying, going out. And when the summer was over, I got 3 A's and 1 B, was reinstated back to the university.
Wow.
And then, that next year, not only did I graduate, but the conference that I ran, it was called the Big 8, because we're a Division I school. We're the top school. Today it's called the Big 12. But I was the Big 8 champion in the 110-meter high hurdles and the Big 8 champion in the 400 intermediate low hurdles. Second person in the history to do that in the conference today. And then I placed 3rd in the NCAA Division I track championships. I placed 2nd as an American. Then later on in that same year, I placed 6th in the United States Track Championship, the Nationals. I qualified for the U.S. Olympic trials in 1984 in both hurdle races. This is pure clean, no steroids, no nothing, just hard work and diet and sleep and good coaching. And so I didn't make the Olympic team because I had a knee injury about 10 days prior to the Olympic trials. But I was ranked number 6th and number 7th in the United States in the men's low hurdles. And today, I still have the fastest time in Kansas State's history in the men's low hurdles, 38 years. Thank you, God, for that. Yes. And so my life was at the top. So after I graduated, I became a graduate assistant track coach in Kansas State for about half a semester. And then I got a job coaching at the same junior college that I went to in Kansas, track coach. That was in 1985. In 1985, 86, I got married and I moved out to Los Angeles because I received the offer to run professional track with the South Bay Track Club, coached by this gentleman named Mr. Lenny Webb, great guy. And so, I was like 25, 26. Hey, I want to go to LA, La La Land. So when I went out there after, so I had a job that I was offered did not come through. So I had this bright idea to move to an area where the rent is very low so we can cut our overhead, get back on our feet. But I had no idea that in 1986, I moved to South Central Los Angeles in Inglewood. And at that time, that was 3 years before the Rodney King, event was released. So I spent the next 2 years in that environment. And I couldn't believe my eyes coming from Park Forest, Illinois, a suburban middle class community, very diverse, no gangs and no drugs, to Kansas, rural country, to the inner city, like going to Vietnam. The gangs had wars with the police, gunshots every night right where I lived, machine guns. And then I had a brother-in-law that was killed by some gang members. And so and then what I'm explaining to you now was my first experience with mental illness, because I suffered from some severe clinical depression and severe mental illness. And this is how it happened. So I went 2 years just absorbing all this gunshots and violence, etc. And I was afraid for my wife that something might happen while I wasn't home. And this is during the time when cell phones were not even out. So after my brother-in-law was murdered, then I found myself, by the way, I was working as a social worker with developmental disabled. And I drive the van, and I take them on outings, like do community integration and pre-vocational skill training, things of that nature. So then I found myself stopping almost every hour, getting to a payphone, calling my wife to see if everything was okay. This was the beginning of worries and fears that was, invading in my mind. And it went on for about 1.5 years. And then one day, like my normal day, for example, was I get up at 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning. My track club, South Bay, they would come pick me up. We go do track practice till about 6:30 in the morning. Then I would come home, shower, and then I would go to work. And then on the off days, my ex-wife and I, we would go to the beach, the clubs, to dancing and things like that. That was like my everyday life. And felt really good about myself giving back. But then after 1.5 years of this worry, so I'm constantly worried at the same time with all this violence going on at the same time. So then one day I was on my way to some type of business meeting. I can't recall at this time. And by the way, I'm going to explain to y'all what's called psychosis. Psychosis is it's ultimately when the neurotransmitter, your brain cells, serotonin in mind, one or the other, it stops producing enough or too much or less than what it's supposed to. The dopamine, the endorphins in your brain starts producing too much or too less, right? So I didn't know that until many, many years later. But so one day I'm driving to this meeting, and then I'm blessed to recall this again. So then I remember that suddenly I thought that the cars that were driving next to me and all the semi trucks, they were trying to box me in so the police and the gangs can kill me. And in LA, there's a lot of helicopters that chase bad people. And so I thought those helicopters were also chasing me. And so in the middle of the highway, I had parked my car. I got out and I ran. And I ran about 1.5 miles or so back to where I was living. And then I had banged on my door, and my ex-wife had opened the door, and she said, "What's wrong with you? Where you been?" And I said, "They're in there. They're trying to get us. They're trying to get us." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And then I took off running again. Wow. And then I took off running again. And then the next thing you know, I remember someone said to me, "Julius, do you know where you're at?" And I thought it was at work. I said, "Yeah, I'm at McLaren Hall, such and such." And then I must have went out again. I passed out. And then I heard the voice again, "Julius, do you know where you're at?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm at work." And they says, "No, you're in the hospital." I said, "What am I doing here?" The doctor said, "Someone found you hanging on a pole."
Wow.
By your coat, Wow. You're trying to harm yourself. Someone saved you from trying to harm yourself. Wow. And that's how you got here. And then I remember arguing with the doctor saying, I wouldn't do that. Not me. No way. I would never do that. And then my mom and dad, who flew out there, they walked into the room. And then my dad asked me, was I all right? And I said, yes, sir. And then he says, you okay? Taking any drugs? And I said, no, sir. And I had the doctor and the nurse to confirm that I was on no drugs. And they did, no drugs. And then my dad, he rubbed my neck here. And then he showed me a mirror. And then I saw where I was trying to harm myself. And so to this day, I don't know who the angel is. But I tell you, I always thank God that I'm still alive. So anyway, a psychiatrist that spoke to me. Well, the doctor had asked me if I want to see a psychiatrist. You know what my answer was? No, I'm getting out of La La Land. I'm going back to Park Forest so everybody knows my name. You know. So within a matter of about 3-4 weeks, my ex-wife and I, we moved back to south suburbs in Illinois. And, I never told anybody what had happened. And I just kept it quiet. And what I didn't know then is what I know now. You know, they call it suffering in silence. And so now, when my environment had changed from Los Angeles back at home, the illness that was in my brain had it lied dormant, had went to sleep, so to speak. But I didn't know it was just sitting there waiting to wake up because it needed treatment. But it lied dormant. So in other words, everyone that I saw when I came back at home, everyone that was around me, they had no idea that I had this issue because I was speaking to you just like I am right now. And so about 7 years later, I had went through a divorce with my first daughter, and there was nothing, no domestics or nothing like that. I'm not the type of person. It was just over material things. It was irreconcilable differences. But however, that divorce, my ex-wife had left with our newborn daughter. And just that separation itself, what they did not know is I sunk into deep depression. At that time, I was coaching track. I started a track clinic for youths to give back. I wanted to become a teacher, so I took a class to work on my Type 75 certificate. And I was working at the same high school that I went to. I worked in special education, assistant to the teacher. But while I was going through the divorce, I started calling off sick. You know, I got the flu, but the truth is I was depressed. I was at home lying on the floor crying. Every time I saw photos, I'd start crying. And then my dad, who was living at that time, and my sister, they noticed that something wasn't right about me because my sister always called. He's not the same. So they came over to check on Julius. And then the truth came out that Julius was not in a good place. And my dad, who was a retired military master sergeant, 22 years, who had a lot of experience in 2 Vietnam tours, dealing with those who had psychosis, delusional thoughts, everything. He would bring them back, you know.
PTSD.
Sorry?
PTSD.
Yes, and that ultimately is my diagnosis. It was PTSD, cultural shock, schizoaffective disorder, which means it's an illness that's exacerbated when intense stress, not regular stress, intense stress, a series of crises back to back are not treated over a long period of time. And in my case, it was over a year, 6 years, things like that, but it kept coming. And so anyway, my dad came and he saw that I wasn't in a good space. So he began to talk to me and tell me some real things that his experience. And then my confidence lifted up. You know, depression started going away. And my dad came up with a plan. He says, you know, move out your house, move in with us, get back on your feet. And I did that. And about a month later, this is all within about 2 months. a month later, my dad, he passed in my arm with a heart attack. And I tried, yes, and we were, I tried to save him. His last words to me was, "Help me, son," and I couldn't. The paramedics was there, too, and the machine went flatline. And then everything that happened in that moment is I got really depressed again.
Yes.
And but I tried to stay in control because I was the leader, one of the leaders in the family, being around my sister and my mom. My older two brothers, they weren't around at the time. So I was telling them, I couldn't tell them that Dad had died because we were in separate rooms. So I just told them, follow the ambulance. So as we were following the ambulance in a hospital, I just continued to get depressed. And I remember I stopped the car and I cursed God and I cursed Jesus. And I just, really bad. And I says, "Why? You're not real, because look what's happening. Why me?" And then, so I just fell into the arms of Satan, I call it. And when the ambulance went left to the hospital, I went right. And then I just kept getting more depressed. And I remember my mind, which is not like it is today, thank God. My mind was saying, I started hearing voices. And when I say voices, I mean, it's because the illness that I never treated at first, way back 7 years before, I never treated. All of that opened back up along with the new depression. And so my neurotransmitters were not operating the correct way. They were either producing too much or too less, which means it causes delusion, seeing things that aren't there. It causes me, and you see people around that having conversations in public, talking to whomever. That's what was happening to me. My friends and family today can't believe that when I tell them this. So this was happening to me as I was in the car. And then I decided to go see a friend and just party. And
I think your volume went down a little bit. There you go. Okay.
Yeah, just party. And then I was in a situation where I never did cocaine. The party I met was smoking marijuana and drinking. But I remember that the person I was with, I did not say anything about what had just happened. I was just there. So, but I just remember telling myself that I'm going to die like this. I'm going to die like this. And so this individual person that knew that I did not like the cocaine and the crack cocaine. But in that moment, I allowed that person to convince me that if I did some cocaine, I could sober up and then we could be together for that evening. And then I remember getting mad about the cocaine, said, "Get that away from me." But as I continued to drink more and the depression continued to escalate, then I said, "Let me try it." And then one side of me said, "Try it and use it and smoke it until you're done." And then the other side of me said that it's not going to do you like everybody else. So it sort of had this antagonistic effect in my brain, back and forth. And so that was my first time using it. And then within 1 week, every weekend I was going to kick it with this person and then use it. And then within 1 week, after smoking, I had lost my job that I was doing. And the next thing you know, I did a burglary. And then the next weekend, another burglary that I started getting caught for burglaries, getting locked up. And so this cocaine had a really quick effect on me, really, really quick and really bad.
Wow.
So now I got two issues as years went on, untreated mental health and then a serious drug addiction that lasted for the next 2.5 decades.
Wow.
Had me sleeping and living in abandoned buildings and parked cars. I would only last, when I get released from incarcerated, My incarceration was thefts and burglaries.
Wow.
That was strictly related to the cocaine use, the substance abuse. I also, because of the untreated mental illness, I landed in about 6 or 7 mental hospitals, 7 shelters. I lived a life homeless, sleeping in and out of people's hallways, parked cars, abandoned buildings, sleeping on cardboard boxes. Yeah.
Wow.
Riding the city trains in Chicago's late at night. It was just it was just terrible. But I was caught up into this terrible cycle of defeat. And there was a part of me that told me because I was a social worker, I can fix myself.
Right.
And
Wow.
and every time I tried to fix myself, I just sunk. Public distrust, community distrust, dereliction, being treated really bad. I remember being at shelters, and one time a church came and picked us up. Because now I grew up in the suburbs, but I spent most of the time on the west side of Chicago in the streets because I could not get out of prison and go back to my community, Park Forest, because the area that we live, you could not have a felony and live there or the entire family has to go. So now I'm in the streets many, many nights, situations where drug houses, 3 or 4 situations, guns are pulled on me, close range on my forehead. Individuals, because I'm stealing and people telling me if I run, they're going to shoot me. And I ran, they didn't shoot me. So one time a bus came to pick us up from the homeless shelter to go to a church. So I didn't want to steal this one particular day. And I got tired of walking. So I went to church. And there's about 20 of us. Well, I separated myself from the crowd because I like to sit in the front of the church. So I was sitting in the front of the church. And one of the ushers came and tapped me on the shoulder and says, "Excuse me, did you come in with that group?" I said, "Yeah." "Well, you have to sit with them." Yeah. There goes my chance to believe in God again.
Wow.
I was furious. Yeah, I was furious. I was mad. Haven't went back to a church. Didn't go back to a church until probably about 2 years ago.
Wow.
Okay.
What a transformation.
Yes.
Well, let me take a pause real here. I want to thank everybody that's joining us tonight. This is the Face of a Hero show. We come on every Thursday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. We do have some new viewers. Shout out to Angel Lopez. Coach Lopez is watching as well. Greg Blanford. And we have Taranaya as well. And somebody that knows you also said, listening again to your story brings back to many memories. I remember waiting outside of your hospital room, concerned and troubled. A turbulent episode. So happy things have resolved itself, though it took a while. Proud of you, and you know that. And that's Len Webb. And some other comments. They're watching us from LinkedIn, from Twitch TV, Facebook, YouTube. And we appreciate everybody calling or commenting here because this story is truly coming from a hero.
That's right.
He is still standing here sharing his story and is able to say it and be sober, be healthier now. But he's doing heroic things that I'm so thankful for you, Julius, that God has allowed you to go through that. And hearing your heartfelt story is me watching you in a movie, right? And going through all those trials and tribulations that you went through so that you can see, to understand you and others. And I mean, here you are telling us your story. Thank you. And I thank God for you.
Absolutely. It's mind-blowing from to me, it's mind-blowing what I just heard. And I just want to know how did you just stop? What
was that turning point?
Exactly.
When was your turning point, Julius?
Well, I gotta tell you this. My book that I wrote is about the importance of mentors and tutors. And Eve,
Yes, you got it right. He's calling me the Spanish name, but in my mind, he's calling me Eva. I'm like, it's not Eva, it's Eve. But then earlier, before we got on the air, he's like, Eva. I'm like, wow, he just blew me away. He's telling my name in Spanish. But yes.
Well, Eve, a few days ago, you had a post, and you put a post up that was about parents. Tell your kids that it's okay to wear the same shoes every day. Tell your kids that it's okay if you're fat, skinny, Hispanic, black, white,
whatever.
whether you got money or not, you can still be successful and reach your dreams. And so this is what mentors and tutors do. And when you wrote that, I was like, wow, that's me. So at the point that I changed, I was not ready to change. So you hear people for many, many years, they say, oh, leave them alone or leave them alone. They're not going to change until they're ready, right? So I used to think for many, many years, too, we hear you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Right.
So the point that I changed, I wasn't ready to change. So after what I'm about to tell you, what I tell people now is, if you lead a horse to water long enough, sooner or later, it's going to start drinking.
He's going to get thirsty.
Yeah, right. See, so at the point that I changed, it was my last lockup. The last time I got locked up was 2010. And I did another burglary on crack cocaine the fourth time. Now, I'm not proud of getting locked up in the things that I did because I harmed many people emotionally. I never had a gun. I didn't physically harm anybody. But just breaking in someone's house, stealing their property, scares the heck out of people. Makes them unafraid to not safe no more. So I did a whole lot of repenting and a lot of behavioral change to not be that person no more so I can do good to get back.
Wow.
So at the point, so I'm in the Cook County Jail. And because I was on a drug binge, it's okay. Just walking me through this, okay? It's happy tears.
Okay. It's okay.
Don't worry. I'm not going backwards mentally, nothing like that.
No. I'm with
just
you.
Grateful. I'm just grateful. I'm grateful.
Amen.
So I'm sitting on a bunk in the jail. And I was out in the streets for another 5 days on drugs. So I get locked up. So the only thing that was going through my brain was shame, guilt, resentment for the 16th time. 16th time. And I was crying. There was a group of fellas in the jail that did a prayer circle every evening. They kept asking me to come with them to pray. And I said no. And the reason why I said no was because the person that was asking me was gay. And I said no. And I sat on that bunk and I was just depressed. And then a few days later, when I say depressed, there's a difference between the average person saying, hey, I'm depressed and I'm stressed. I was clinically depressed, which means I needed intervention of medication and therapy. Hands down. That's it. So I just sat on that bunk, and then a few days later, the officer that watches our deck says, Mercer, there's someone that wants to speak to you on the second floor. So I just sat there. You're going to go, Mercer? I just sat there. I just kept thinking. And then there was this, in my property box under my bunk, someone that gave me like a recovery Bible. This Bible equates the 12-step program into this Bible. And so then I remember just thinking about that Bible. Just thinking about it. That's all. So then finally I jumped off my bunk and I went to go see who that person was. That person was this girl named Sarah Fletcher. She's a behavioral health worker from Trilogy Behavioral Mental Health Services in Chicago. which I'm still a member in there now. I'm on the council now, though. You know,
Wow,
I'm
look
a
at that.
voice for 500 clients right now. Okay,
All right.
so God is good.
Amen.
So that person says, Mr. Mercer, I just wanted to talk to you because we see your name on a database. You've been here so many times. And then, now still, I didn't want to talk about the mental health issues that I had, 25 years before at this time.
Right.
But I just talked about the addiction. So I told this lady my story that went all the way back when I was 26. At this time, I was 50 years old.
No.
And she said to me, Mr. Mercer, I want you to know, I don't believe you're an addict, but I think you have unresolved issues, but you can use some medical attention. You can get your life back. But I want you to know that there's a strong relationship with addictions and mental health. When she said that to me, I opened up and started talking. Hey!
You were a canary. After that, you were a parent, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
That was the beginning of removing stigma. Because I found out later that what kept me quiet, suffering in silence for so many years was stigma with mental health. Today I know stigma means that when you're afraid of what people may say or think about you, if they found out something was different about you. Mm-hmm. And then I went, oh, wow. But she helped remove my stigma. I opened up. Then I started receiving this service. And then this young lady would come visit me in jail for the next year, every 2 weeks. She even went to court with me. And the prosecutor said, I had asked for the minimum, which was 6 years. The prosecutor said, Mr. Mercer deserves the maximum. He had many chances working with kids, but he chose a life of crime. I think he should have the maximum. He's a menace to society. And I cried like a baby. I was like, I'm not a menace to society. I've never tried mental health help. Please. This lady here opened me up about mental health. So this lady from Trilogy spoke to the judge. And the judge says, why these things happen to people, I do not know. But I think Mr. Mercer deserves a second chance. We're going to give him the minimum. I had to do eight years. I had to do 4 straight years in the penitentiary.
Wow.
And then he says, Mr. Mercer, I think you're going to make it this time. And when you get out, come back and see. And that was my turning point and opening up the service. And then once I was sentenced, I went to this prison. See, Illinois has about 26 or so prisons, different security levels. So they sent me to a prison of very high security. I wasn't supposed to go there, but Illinois was overcrowded at that time, so they put you where they got room.
Right.
So I go to this prison where the minimum that the person had there was 16 years, and some were never even getting out. They've been behind the wall. And then many men there, they like other men and things of this nature was going on. So I walk in there, and all these men were like, hey, can you be Julius? You could be my cellie. And here I am. And I'm still a nice guy. I've never been in the gang, never been, a person that's used to being, incarcerated and having this incarceration type mentality. So I'm nice to him and said, sure, I want to be with an old school cellmate. And then I asked this one guy, I said, why do they keep coming at me? And this one guy says, Mercer, because you're new, and to them, you look like a fresh cheeseburger.
Oh my gosh.
So,
I mean, it wasn't funny then, right? It probably freaked you out.
Right, because
fresh meat.
I started swearing at him, cursing, like, leave me alone, stay off of me. And then I got in trouble. They wrote me up a lot, said I was a troublemaker in the unit. So they sent me to the hole, isolation for 30 days by myself, no recreation, no nothing, just a fan and books. And I'm going to tell you this. I read some books, but I read the Bible. I kept reading my recovery Bible. And while I was reading my recovery Bible, see, a transformation was going on, and I didn't know it at that time. I just kept reading Psalms. I read about fruits of the spirits. So I just kept focusing on those chapters and Proverbs. So after 30 days was done, the lieutenant there was walking me back to my new cell, and she says, "Mercer, these people that you cursed out, they're everywhere. What you gonna do now?" And I was just quiet. So I ended up going to a cell that was with a person who happened to be straight, but he was also like always disruptive, want to start trouble. So I found myself talking to him and relying on the word in the Bible, being kind and courteous and nice. I started doing this suddenly. And then I made an announcement in the whole unit. And I told them, I says, look, we all got issues. We all want to get up out of here. And then I said, I respect you guys, even the LGBT community, just respect me. And then I found myself in front of these inmates, gangsters, killers, people that never get out, rapists. I found myself shaking hands and hugging them. You know?
Wow.
And just shaking hands. And then we started exchanging stories.
Wow.
And I just respected them. And then the counselor got to know me. The counselor had met me because they do intake. And when they found out I got a bachelor's degree and everything I did in track and field, she was like, "What are you doing here? Only less than 3 or 4% has bachelor's degrees here."
Wow.
So I was telling her about my story.
Wow.
And you know what she did? She said, "Mr. Mercer, I'm going to switch you to a prison that has a lot of education."
Okay,
so within 5 days, they transferred me to a minimum security, minimum. I wasn't supposed to be there because I screwed up so many times. And I went to this minimum prison, and they had a lifestyle reentry program. I went right to it, and I did 2.5 years there. Total behavior modification, positive esteem groups, anger management. I took this one class that's called like it had to do with getting criminal behavior out of you.
Retraining your brain, right?
Yes. And so after I finished these courses about a year or so, then the counseling and the staff, word got around because I used to train. I was lifting weights a lot, running a lot on the yard when we had recreation. And so officers, they would see me run, and officers would say, "Hey, Mercer, come here." And I was reluctant to want to talk to these officers because the inmates see you talking to them and think you're snitching on them.
Right.
But this one officer was a track coach in the town. And he says, "Mercer, I see you running all the time. You don't run like normal people. You run different." And I said, "I used to be a professional track runner." And he says, "I thought so." So then inmates would come to me and say, hey man, we see you talking to the officer. What's going on? The gangs would send the gangs would send other gang members who were closer to me because I played basketball team, softball tournaments. I could still go. So they would come over and ask me what's going on in my relationship, and I would tell them, he's a track coach, and I used to be world class running. And the inmates didn't believe me either because they think everybody in prison and jail lie.
Right.
So then after the first year there, when I graduated from these classes, then the word got around to the warden about me being world class and things of that nature. Then the warden had me speak to the graduating classes of substance abuse, tell my story.
Wow.
Yeah, God is good. This is where I started honing my skills to speak. And another part of my therapy was one of the counselors told me to write a letter to my deceased dad the good things and the bad things about yourself. So I was writing this letters for therapy, and then you ball it up and throw it away. So I started writing all the bad stuff that I didn't like about myself. And I started crying. And the counselor said, "Why are you crying?" The counselor saw what I was writing, and the counselor said, "No, you're writing all the bad stuff. For every 1 or 2 bad things you write about you, you got to write the good things about you to balance your emotions." Right? So when I did it the right way, I didn't cry no more. And so I started writing this letter to my deceased dad. And I wrote for about 2.5 years or so, because that's the time that I had. I just kept writing and writing. All kind of ideas came up. And then this correctional officer, a female, she says, "Mercer, you're always writing." And then I shared it with her. And she says to me, "When do you get out, Mercer?" I said, "I get out in about 8 months or something." "Mercer, if you risk being vulnerable and turn that into a book, you could help many people." That's how my book came about.
And what's the name of your book, Julius?
I dedicated to my deceased dad. And I ran with what she said because I had an extensive criminal background. And it's all I had was something, this book, and to believe and have faith that this could happen. Also, while in this process, I got to tell you this. So I went to a chapel service, and there was this inmate that comes back, that was released, come back and speak to us. And he kept saying, "I'm telling you," it's a black brother, looked just like me. And he kept saying, "If you repent and you get into the word," he says that you can get your life back. And then I had a friend that was a Muslim friend. Najee is his name. He's out today. So Najee, he studied the Quran and also the Bible. So I used to talk to him, and then he would teach me some things. And I just started to see what was any connection of any on a positive without man sort of interfering. That's just what I was doing, okay? And so the next thing you know, this guy was telling the story, and then I started crying. Then I remember I repented. And then from that day forward, I said that I'm not going to go a day without thanking God for his grace and mercy.
Amen.
And then I said, "Fill me with the same spirit that you put in Jesus Christ. Then walk and talk with me, because I'm not of a good thing." I've been saying that every morning for 13 years.
Amen.
And it shapes my attitude, how I walk. I don't care who you are, where you're from, because I remember when I was down in those streets homeless, I saw what it felt like to be treated. Kids would throw eggs at us at the homeless shelter during Halloween. They would say, "Get out of here." You know, they call me all kind of names. "You're no good. You're this and that."
Wow.
One of the things that keep me going today is I like to joke and look back and say, "Oh, I was doing research." Yeah. But I tell you, that experience has filled me with so much compassion and empathy to get in other people's shoes. You know, you or somebody else may talk about them, but I bite my lip because I go, there was me. It can happen to anybody.
Wow.
It can happen to anybody.
Absolutely.
And so I just do my best. I don't make a lot of money. Sometimes I just give my books away, just talk to people. But I just try to give someone some hope. I talk to young kids about domestic violence, little boys. I talk to them about being kind, courteous, try to be respectful, to don't be like others. Even those that are deemed bullies, I talk to them to help them to see how they became that way, that you really aren't. You know, so I just do my best.
Thank you.
You know, yeah. So
Thank you. You know, Julius, you're not trying, you're doing it.
I'm doing. Oh,
You're doing it. Because what is trying? Are we doing it or we're not doing it? You're
That's right.
doing it.
ooh, thank you.
Okay? And
You're doing-
so you are a hero.
Yes, you are.
You have been a hero to many that may not come and tell you, may not have the opportunity to tell you. Those that are watching here, we know you are for hire. I have placed the link on the social media platforms of where to get your book.
Thank you.
That is titled A New Fire. Why A New Fire? Why that name?
Well, because I thought of the title. Well, I used to sit in the prison and I would watch different pastors just preach. And then I heard one particular pastor say, that fire back. But then there was some other fellas that when I used the word fire, the other fellas that go to church, they would tell me, fire is a part of Satan, it's connected to Satan, don't say that. And then I remember being an athlete and the coach would always say, let's get fired up, it's a good thing. So then I just wrote like about 20 different titles. And then I start putting these words together. And then I went, my original title, my first book was called A New Fire in You. So, but that first book, which I released in 2016, had a lot of grammatical errors. It wasn't edited properly. So during the pandemic, I did the second edition, which is A New Fire. And my great friend, gentleman named Mr. Christopher Grohl, who is a writer himself, he teaches ESL. I asked him to help rewrite and co-write my second book, which is out now. And then he says to me, how about if you drop the you? Because a new fire in you sounds like you're sort of like you're pushing it on that person. But a new fire is like, it doesn't really, a new fire, it's not like direct, not direct
Right.
or person, right. to anybody.
Right.
So I thought about it, and contemplated, and I said, okay, I'm gonna go with a new fire.
I like
and
that.
so,
and that's that fire in you, okay, Julius? That's that fire in you. That's that fire in you. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry.
That's the fire in you. That's that fire. A new fire in you, a new fire in the person that reads the story, a new fire that can relate to your story, that sees themselves in that story, that says, wow, there is a voice there for me. Wow.
Yes.
I thought I was the only one that I felt out of place where I was at. I just needed help. And thank you for helping to change that and get rid of that stigma, get rid of that label, disable the label. And you've done much research.
Absolutely.
Through your life experience that you had to live through it to come and tell us now, wait, you're not alone. I got some help here for you.
That's
Believe
right.
me, I lived through it, I learned through it, and I grew through it. Now I'm speaking about it to help you. That to me is a hero.
And also, then I'm sorry. And then I've been blessed because 5 years ago, some people that I ran across through networking, they invited me to join like a research team, a mental health research team at the Illinois Institute of Technology. So we do mental health research for African American women with obesity. I facilitated a couple of groups, and then I helped to, the professor would have a hypothesis. I helped to approve the hypothesis. And then next thing you know, through word of mouth, I got picked up on a council of the University of Chicago hospitals.
Wow.
Where myself and some community stakeholders, like 20-something doctors, we evaluate potential breakthrough in medicine. We evaluate these researchers and get a kick out of this one. So I still today go to Trilogy Behavioral Mental Health. I graduated from therapy 3 years ago. So I'm on a council. This is lived experience individuals, and we're a voice to 500 clients, right? So now I'm there as a patient. So I'm at the Illinois Institute of Technology, who partners with Trilogy Behavioral Mental Health Services with some projects. So now the Illinois Institute of Technology had to do a presentation to the Trilogy social workers, and I was one of the facilitators. To them, they were like blown away, like, wait a minute, he's a client, he's teaching us.
You're the expert.
Oh, that's what they
You're the
say.
expert.
That's right.
Because I cannot say I'm the expert because I went to college and have my PhD on this, but I've never gone through it.
Right.
You didn't experience it. You did.
Yes. I think another word might be institutional knowledge. Because
wow. Thank you.
That's a new book right there. Okay.
Yes.
Institutional knowledge. And we mean it in two different ways.
Correct.
You were in two different institutions.
That's right.
Wow.
And this, what you went through is going to open up the minds of possibly some of these other inmates to think, why am I going through this? Well, now they know why they've been going through this. It wasn't because of themselves. It was they had something mental going on in their brain, like you said, that, like the judge said, oh, you're a menace to society. No, that's not you. Something's going on in my mind where it took that woman, that psychologist, to figure it out. Say, Julius, there's nothing wrong with you. There's something wrong with your brain. And that's why I said a lot of these inmates are going to see that. They're going to read it. They're going to say, you know what? Nothing is wrong with me. There's something wrong with my mind right now. I can be fixed.
And since you said that, it turns out everybody knows that I have a chemical imbalance. And so, but for myself and a lot of people, we always thought, because I spoke to a lot of people on drugs, when I heard chemical imbalance, I thought it was the chemicals that I was using caused the imbalance. And then through education, I said, no, like say, for example, there are 6 neurotransmitters that are responsible for the balance. And one of them, serotonin, is not producing enough. So that means there's an imbalance.
Right.
So right. Oh, wow.
But God, Julius, he's our healer. He's our redeemer.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
And I know that we've gone over our time, but we could not cut this off because there's one more thing you haven't shared with us, and that's the non-for-profit.
Yes, let us know about that.
Well, actually, in terms of my Contagious Visions?
Yes.
Okay, actually.
You're the founder of the Contagious Visions and anti-bully educational platform. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, so while I was in prison, someone that gave me this book. It's by a motivational speaker named Anthony Robbins.
Anthony Robbins.
Okay? And Robbins, he wrote this book called Awaken the Giant from Within. And I just used to go through it a lot. And then there was one part that he says, if you're homeless, don't say you're homeless. Replace those words with something positive.
That's right.
So I took from that that I am a coach. I am a leader of people. I took that along with what the scriptures was telling me in the Bible, and saw that the scriptures in the Bible helped me to remove shame and guilt, and also the Bible helped me to learn to thank God for the good and the bad. Once while in prison, I learned to be thankful for the good and the bad. All the shame and guilt went away.
Amen to that. And that's nothing but the enemy.
Yes.
Got you locked up right here, thinking that.
So I continue to read some things about anger, worry, doubt, fears, and things like that. And I could see how all those things plagued me to go downwards, right into Satan's arms, like you said. So I developed this module under the contagious visions. I developed this module. I teach it just like in a classroom, and I call it the cycle of defeat. So I draw a circle, and I did this at several high schools and the kids already. I draw a circle, and I write the word self in that circle. The self means each individual. And then I would attach to self the word worry, anger, doubt, fears, critical of self, things of that. And so I was able to see how self can just start my normal day. But as I navigate through life, even in classrooms as a kid, as I run across people in situations and they criticize me, talk about my lips and how skinny I was as a kid, the bullying part. I allow the criticism of them affect me. Now the self is no longer self. I'm walking around with the self, the critical self, or the doubtful self and the worry self, if you follow me.
Yes.
So while locked up, I had to detach all of this negativity away from myself. So I designed this module to show kids in schools, how do you detach these worry, fears, and doubts as a kid if you're not to the point yet where you believe in God or whatever your higher power is, whatever, if you're not there yet. How do you do it? Well, then I connected with, well, you go see your social worker. You go to a therapist, go see your counselor, go talk to a mentor, a coach, your favorite teacher, and they can help guide you through these fears, doubts, and worries. So that way, when you get these fears, doubts, and worries or anger, when you're a kid going through school, it can bother you, but you learn to don't hang on it too long, because now those mentors are filling you up with just the opposite, empowering yourselves. So my module is called the cycle of defeat. And I call it contagious visions because that module was the same vision that I caught when I was in prison writing this book, and that it's contagious. I found out, I tried this way of thinking in this module while I was in prison to inmates, and they loved it when I would speak to them. So I said, oh, wow, it's contagious. So that's how I came up with contagious visions, and you have a division in your life.
Wow. And is that number current active, the one that you have, Contagion Vision Anti-Bully Program, the 773 number?
Yes, 773-793-8669.
All right, I have it here, and I just posted for those of you that would like to have him bring this platform to your school, to your prison.
Absolutely.
He knows what he's talking about. He's been there, done that. And now he has been used as a vessel to bring that solution. It's sad to say that many prisons had removed mental health program. Many people that have been incarcerated are wrongfully incarcerated. Instead, they should be put in a mental program.
That's right.
Just as they were able to help you years later, they found the answer for you. It took many years, but it took place. It happened. And now you're here to talk about it because you've been about it. And so Mental Health America has been around. Now they are bringing them back into some of the prisons where they actually have a psychologist there to evaluate and help them. But not all prisons have it. Some still frown on that. It's sad to say that there's people that have mental health issues that are bipolar or that have
PTSD.
That as well. And so they're only triggered. So they're reacting to that trigger, causing them to get in trouble, causing them to get incarcerated. But have they have the right help, the right kind of help and or medication that can help balance them out with strong programs that can retrain the brain, remove the stigma, remove the negativity, remove the shame, remove all of that you've gone through. You have proven it here, live here on, I was going to say Real Talk with EBE, but Real Talk with EBE is right here on this show. Keeping it real through Julius Mercer, that Mr. Mercer is here to tell you where there's a will, there's a way, and God has made a way by using Julius to bring that to you to come and speak to you, to your staff, I mean, wherever it is, someone's always going through some issues. It's mental health.
Yes.
And if you stay quiet as he did, unfortunately, some don't make it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Some don't.
I appreciate you how you kept tugging at me, because we're both so busy and you didn't give up. I really appreciate that. Thank you
No,
so much.
I just felt pushed that your story was going to be heartfelt, not knowing this part of your story. Thank you for sharing it here. You
Absolutely.
are a hero. Continue to save lives by sharing your story, that someone else can feel that they are not alone and that there is a solution to their problem. I
That's
always say there's no problem so long as there's a solution. There is no problem because there is a solution. Thank you so much, Mr. Mercer, for coming on here on
Thank
the
you, Julius.
Hero.
God
Thank
bless
you
you.
too. I appreciate it.
Yes, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with you. We appreciate you, Mr. Mercer, for sharing this. And everyone that has seen this video, please share this interview, share it with others, because you
Yes.
never know who you may save by listening to this story.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you so
thank
much.
you, Mr. Mercer. We appreciate you. Wow. This went a little beyond the time, but I believe it was well worth it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my God, what a heartwarming story, but a true story from an individual that has experienced it. And I'm sure it's going to open up a lot of eyes to some of these people that they see homeless, because as he has said, when he was homeless, that he used to be taunted and made fun of, and people didn't know what the backstory is, which a lot of people don't know what the backstory is of people, of
They
homeless
don't.
people, individuals.
They don't. And so this is a solution for some of you that have been watching, or you know someone that needs to watch this. Please share this. It's not even
Absolutely.
about us. It's about the face of a hero
That's right.
sharing their story. If you know of a hero that you feel that needs to share their story, please call us. And the number is right here on the bottom of our screen. That is thefaceofahero.com. Go to 773-809-0106. And on that note, Agustin, I know you got places to go, people to see. Oops, I'm sharing something else. People to see. And thank you for joining me today, Agustin.
Absolutely.
We appreciate
Absolutely.
you. Until next time, guys, we do have to
Yes.
go. Nos vemos.
Take
See you
care.
then. Bye now.